We're excited to have Mike Dixon back with us in the studio. Mike, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Allison.
So, it's been about 50 years since Port Deposit started rebuilding after Hurricane Agnes.
Right. So you were just talking to to Jerry, the health department planner, about disasters, and 46 years ago this week, Port Deposit was just beginning to recover from one of the worst natural disasters in Maryland. It had originally been a hurricane, but in this case it had been downgraded to Tropical Storm Agnes. It had brought enormous devastation to the area.
Right. So what was the impact?
Okay. So the way it unfolded, it was the middle of June 1972. And about June 14th, the National Weather Service started issuing weather bulletins for the Florida and Carolina coast for a tropical storm. A lady named Agnes was moving up the coast. Well, as it came up the coast, it passed North Carolina on Wednesday evening, June 21st. It was just near the Chesapeake, moving to this area, but it's been downgraded. And if you looked at the weather forecast, it wasn't particularly alarming. It talked about periods of heavy rain, but it wasn't like a hurricane impacts type of storm. Anyway, the night of Wednesday, June 21st, it blew through the area. It dropped a lot of rain, and that was really the problem. It worked its way up the New Jersey coast, and as it approached the New York metro area, there was a stationary front that forced it back into Pennsylvania. And that really was the problem for Port Deposit, because it stalled over Pennsylvania and New York, the Susquehanna River drainage area, and it just brought enormous floods down into Port Deposit. So that was Wednesday 21st into Thursday the 22nd. That night, late Wednesday night, there was a discussion that they might, as they watched the waters rise, they might have to open all 53 gates. Well, into the next day or so, the next Thursday morning, they will open all 53 gates of the dam. The water eventually is going to top over the dam. The dam can't discharge it, and Port Deposit and the entire Susquehanna region was set up for a record flood. Well, they'll evacuate Port Deposit, and in about an 8-hour period, the order goes out for a mandatory evacuation. And there was even thought that they might have to dynamite the dam to have a controlled release, because they were worried about its stability. Well, this storm, now no one loses their life here, but 19 people across Maryland did, and in the end, Hartford Memorial Hospital's evacuated, Citizens Nursing Home in Havre de Grace. Port Deposit's it's a town of 1,000 people at that point, entirely evacuated. And of course, it terribly disrupts the area. Perry Point, they start evacuating Perry Point and all these low-lying areas. So it was just an enormous storm. And as your gentleman, as Jerry was just talking about, it's really appropriate to pay attention to these things, because people were out of their homes.
They come up out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, like you said, it's been 46 years, so we are coming up on 50 years. How do you think towns or the county should commemorate disasters like this?
Yeah, that's an interesting question you have there. Anyone who was alive in Port Deposit, and really the entire region, Havre de Grace and Perryville and Perry Point and the hospitals, remember the storm. It defines a century, a passage of life for a generation. If you talk to people, I'd really like to see us take note of this, because we're approaching 50 years. There's a generation of police officers, firefighters, fire chiefs, ambulance attendants, road workers, public health, all of these folks, and the everyday people who had their lives totally disrupted on a summer or a June and late spring of '72. So it would be nice to do like an oral history program, because these guys are getting old, and gals too, 50 years ago. And I'd love to see the community come together and begin to memorialize this, remember the stories of those who responded, those who lost, and how they did it. Memories are starting to grow dim as you pass the half-century mark. So,
cool. Well, I think that would be great, and I'm sure you will be very much involved in that.
Right. Well, it would be a great thing to do.
Well, thank you again for being here. Did we miss anything?
I think we've covered it. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you very much.